morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Marcia from Mom Hunts Dead People, and today we are resuming the inquest from the Lizzie Borden trial. In the last episode at the end, I had a warning for anyone who was sensitive or squeamish. Today, we will be picking up right after that discussion. So if you quit the video early, you didn't miss anything. It was literally just talking about could blood have been on the axe or hatchets via animal, because 1890s, and even though they didn't live in a farming community, it was still perfectly normal to have acquired your food through fresher means. So the first question by the Inquisitor this time is going to be basically, hey, is there any other way this could have happened? And then they're going to roll on and completely miss the subject. So as I said before the warning last time, you're not going to miss anything if you had skipped out on the warning. All right, everyone, let us dig in. Is there anything else besides that would lead, in your opinion, so far as you can remember, to the finding of instruments in the cellar with blood on them? I know of nothing else that was done. Judge Blaisdell, was there any effort made by the witness to notify Mrs. Borden of the fact that Mr. Borden was found? Did you make any effort to notify Mrs. Borden of your father being killed? No, sir. When I found him, I rushed right to the foot of the stairs for Maggie. I supposed Mrs. Borden was out. I did not think anything about her at the time. Any time, did you say anything about her to anybody? No, sir. To the effect that she was out. I told father when he came in. After your father was killed? No, sir. Did you say you thought she was upstairs? No, sir. Did you ask them to look upstairs? No, sir. Did you suggest to anybody to search upstairs? I said, I don't know where Mrs. Borden is. That is all I said. You did not suggest that any search be made for her? No, sir. You did not make any yourself? No, sir. I want you to give me all that you did by way of word or deed to see whether your mother was dead or not when you found your father was dead. I did not do anything except what I said to Mrs. Churchill. I said to her, I don't know where Mrs. Borden is. I think she is out, but I wish you would look. You did ask her to look. I said that to Mrs. Churchill. Where did you intend for her to look? In Mrs. Borden's room. When you went out to the barn, did you leave the door shut, the screen door? I left it shut. When you came back, did you find it shut or open? No, sir. I found it open. Can you tell me anything else that you did that you have not told me during your absence from the house? No, sir. Can you tell me when it was that you came back from the barn, what time it was? I don't know what time it was. Have you any idea when it was that your father came home? I'm not sure, but I think it must have been after 10, because I think he told me he did not think he should go out until about 10. When he went out, I did not look at the clock to see what time it was. I think he did not go out until 10, or a little after. He was not gone so very long. Will you give me the best judgment you can as to the time your father got back? If you have not any, it is sufficient to say so. No, sir, I have not any. Can you give me any judgment as to the length of time that elapsed after he came back and before you went to the barn? I went right out to the barn. How soon after he came back? I should think not less than 5 minutes. I saw him taking off his shoes and lying down. It only took him 2 or 3 minutes to do it. I went right out. When he came into the house, did he not go into the dining room first? I don't know. And there sit down? I don't know. Why don't you know? Because I was in the kitchen. It might have happened, and you not have known it? Yes, sir. You heard the bell ring? Yes, sir. And you knew when he came in? Yes, sir. You did not see him? No, sir. When did you first see him? I went into the sitting room, and he was there. I don't know whether he had been in the dining room before or not. What made you go into the sitting room? Because I wanted to ask him a question. What question? Whether there was any mail for me. Did you not ask him that question in the dining room? No, sir, I think not. Was he not in the dining room sitting down? I don't remember his being in the dining room sitting down. At that time, was not Maggie washing the windows in the sitting room? I thought I asked for the mail in the sitting room. I'm not sure. Was not the reason he went in the dining room because she was in the sitting room washing windows? I don't know. Did he not go upstairs to his own room before he sat down in the sitting room? I did not see him go. He had the key to his room down there. I don't know whether he had it. It was kept on the shelf. You don't remember he took the key and went into his own room and then came back? No, sir. You don't remember anything of that kind? No, sir. I do not think he did go upstairs either. You will not swear he did not? I did not see him. You swear you did not see him? Yes, sir. You were either in the kitchen or sitting room all the time? Yes, sir. He could not have gone up without he had gone through the kitchen? No, sir. When did you go into the sitting room to ask him a question? If it was the sitting room, what took place then? I asked him if he had any mail. He said, none for you. He had a letter in his hand. I supposed it was for himself. I asked him how he felt. He said, about the same. He said he should lie down. I asked him if he thought he should have a nap. He said he should try to. I asked him if he wanted the window left the way it was, or if he felt a draught. He said, no, that is all. Did you help him about lying down? No, sir. Fix his pillows or head? No, sir. I did not touch the sofa. Did he lie down before you left the room? Yes, sir. Did anything else take place? Not that I remember of. Was he then under medical treatment? No, sir. The doctor had not given him any medicine that you know of? No, sir. He took some medicine. It was not doctor's medicine. It was what we gave him. What was it? We gave him castor oil and then Garfield tea. When was that? He took the castor oil sometime Wednesday. I think sometime Wednesday noon, and I think the tea Wednesday night. Mrs. Borden gave it to him. She went over to see the doctor. When did you first consult Mr. Jennings? I can't tell you that. I think my sister sent for him. I don't know. Was it you or your sister? My sister. You did not send for him? I did not send for him. She said, did we think we ought to have him? I said I do, as she thought best. I don't know when he came first. Now tell me once more, if you please, the particulars of that trouble that you had with your mother 4 or 5 years ago. For those of you who are getting frustrated with him asking things over and over again, now we're on day 2 of her actually coming into the courthouse to be questioned. So she's already given her answer on day 1. She comes in on day 2 and he asks her again. And he's trying to see if her answers align. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to know them, verbatim, like repeat the same answer. People don't normally do that. We just kind of repeat the gist of what we said the first time. But it is believed that liars will elaborate and suddenly remember details that they didn't have before because they just didn't think of them when they were thinking of their story. And it's hard to keep those details in order. So it's kind of like where the KISS statement comes in. Keep it simple, stupid. So if you're gonna lie, keep it simple and intersperse a whole bunch of, I don't know, I don't remember, whenever you can. Not that I'm trying to make you a better liar, but a lot of people will go, oh man, I should know that. They asked me that. And then they start filling in the gaps. Or in some cases, if you've watched police interrogation video, if you're a true crime follower, if you're one of my trial hunters, you've probably come across, police interrogation video, and the person's story literally changes. First they were in one room, then they were in another room. First they said this, and then they said that, and they literally can't keep their story together. And that's kind of what this guy's trying to do. Is he's like, is this going to change? Is she going to start elaborating? Police techniques have been refined over the years. They've gotten much better. But at the core of them, some of the principles are still the same. Her father's house on 4th Street was for sale. Whose father's house? Mrs. Borden's father's house. She had a stepmother and a half-sister. Mrs. Borden did, and this house was left to the stepmother and a half-sister, if I understood it right, and the house was for sale. The stepmother, Mrs. Oliver Gray, wanted to sell it, and my father brought out the widow Gray's share. She did not tell me, and he did not tell me, but for some outsiders said that he gave it to her, put it in her name. I said if he gave that to her, he ought to give us something. Told Mrs. Borden so. She did not care anything about the house herself. She wanted it so this half-sister could have a home, because she had married a man that was not doing the best he could, and she thought her sister was having a very hard time and wanted her to have a home. And we always thought she persuaded father to buy it. At any rate, he did buy it, and I am quite sure she did persuade him. I said what he did for her people he ought to do for his own children, so he gave us grandfather's house. That was all the trouble we ever had. You can kind of see in her statement here, which I greatly appreciate that she went into detail, because now we're getting more of an insight into the family dynamics. So for my dead hunters, we've got a whole bunch of new names. We already knew from the witness statements that Mrs. Oliver Gray was somehow Mrs. Borden's stepmother, and that Mrs. Borden had a half-sister. I'm also terribly thankful that people are referring to relationships correctly, because I've seen a lot of times they will refer to a half-sibling as a step-sibling, and that's not how that works. If they're related by blood and only have one parent that you share, you're a half. If you're legally siblings, but you're not related by blood by either parent, you're step. But this is giving in to a nice little snippet of what's going on. We now know that Mrs. Borden owns that house. Mrs. Borden persuaded her husband to buy her father's old home so that she should give it to her half-sister. And we get a bit of an insight into the way Lizzie thought, or perhaps even the way the time period was at the time, because she says that her step-aunt, that she had married a man who was not doing the best he could. So basically, he wasn't able to provide for her step-aunt, as in, here is a home, here is money to spend, you don't have to work. There's a lot of people nowadays that would have issues with the assumption that the male half of the relationship would have to provide for the female half of the relationship, assuming that you have a male-female relationship in the first place. And there's a lot of people who would also rightly, have offense that any one half of the relationship would have to provide for the other half of the relationship. It's that have to part that people get offended about. If you want to provide for your partner, that's up to you and your partner. But being told you must provide for your partner is offensive, because it's kind of saying, well, why can't my partner do anything for themselves? And why do I have to do everything? So no matter which side of that equation you're on, it's an imbalanced relationship. So Lizzie is also saying that this wasn't such a big deal. They were viewing it, her and her sister were viewing it as a fairness issue. You bought the house for your wife to give to her sister. If you're buying her property, you should be buying us property. And so that's when he gave the sisters their grandfather's house. And that once that occurred, there was no more issues. They're like, cool, everything's fair now. You gave something to everybody. You have not stated any trouble yet between you and her. I said there was feeling 4 or 5 years ago when I stopped calling her mother. I told you that yesterday. That is all there is to it then. Yes, sir. You had no words with your stepmother then. I talked with her about it and said what he did for her, he ought to do for us. That is all the words we had. That is the occasion of this giving you the house that you sold back to him? Yes, sir. Did your mother leave any property? I don't know. Your own mother? No, sir, not that I ever knew of. Did you ever see that thing? Wooden club. Okay, I'm assuming he pulled out a wooden club. In my head, I'm kind of picturing like a baseball bat, but a wooden, or maybe an anime wooden club that an ogre would use. Let's see where this leads us. Yes, sir, I think I have. What is it? My father used to keep something similar to this, that looked very much like it under his bed. He whittled it out himself at the farm one time. How long since you have seen it? I have not seen it in years. How many years? I could not tell you. I should think 10 or 15 years, not since I was quite a little girl. If that is the one, I can't swear that it is the one. It was about this size, marks it with a cross. How many years? 10 or 15? I was a little girl. It must be as much as that. When was the last time the windows were washed before that day? I don't know. Why don't you know? Because I had nothing to do with the work downstairs. When was the last time that you ate with the family that you can swear to before your mother was killed? Well, I ate with them all day Tuesday, that is. What little we ate, we sat down to the table, and I think I sat down to the table with them Wednesday night, but I'm not sure. All day Tuesday, I was down at the table. I understand you to say you did not come down to breakfast. That was Wednesday morning. I understand you to say that you did not come down to breakfast. I came down, but I did not eat breakfast with them. I did not eat any breakfast. Frequently, I would go into the dining room and sit down to the table with them and not eat any breakfast. Did you give to the officer the same skirt you had on the day of the tragedy? Yes, sir. Do you know whether there was any blood on the skirt? No, sir. Assume that there was. Do you know how it came there? No, sir. Have you any explanation of how it might come there? No, sir. Did you know there was any blood on the skirt you gave them? No, sir. Assume that there was. Can you give any explanation of how it came there on the dress skirt? No, sir. Assume that there was. Can you suggest any reason how it came there? No, sir. Have you offered any? No, sir. Have you ever offered any? No, sir. Have you said it came from flea bites? On the petticoats, I said there was a flea bite. I said it might have been. You said you meant the dress skirt. I did. Have you offered any explanation how that came there? I told those men that were at the house that I had had fleas. That is all. Did you ever offer that as an explanation? I said that was the only explanation that I knew of. Assuming that the blood came from outside, can you give any explanation of how it came there? No, sir. You cannot now? No, sir. What shoes did you have on that day? A pair of ties. What color? Black. Will you give them to the officer? Yes. Where are they? At home. What stockings did you have on that day? Black. Where are they? At home. Have they been washed? I don't know. Will you give them to the officer? Yes, sir. The window you was at is the window that was nearest the street to the barn. Yes, sir, the west window. Pears you ate you got from under the tree in the yard. Yes, sir. How long were you under the pear tree? I think I was under there nearly 4 or 5 minutes. I stood looking around. I looked up at the pigeon house that they have closed up. It was no more than 5 minutes, perhaps not as long. I can't say sure. Now, in the last video, the animal that was discussed was pigeons, and now she's saying that they have a pigeon house. So it's possible that they were actually breeding the pigeons for food, and that it wasn't just we have a pest in the barn that we're going to capture and use for food. It looks like they may have actually been breeding the pigeons for food. Judge Blaisdell, was this witness on Thursday morning in the front hall or front stairs or front chamber, any part of the front part of the house at all? What do you say to that? I had to come down the front stairs to get into the kitchen. When you came down first? Yes, sir. Were you afterwards? No, sir. Not at all. Except the few minutes I went up with the clean clothes, and I had to come back again. That you say now was before Mr. Borden went away? Yes, sir. Miss Borden recalled Thursday, August 11th, 1892. Mr. Knowlton, is there anything you would like to correct in your previous testimony? No, sir. Did you buy a dress pattern at New Bedford? A dress pattern? Yes. I think I did. Where is it? It is at home. Where? Where at home? Please. It is in a trunk. In your room? No, sir. In the attic. Not made up? Oh, no, sir. Where did you buy it? Okay, the not made up, I am assuming he means that she hasn't used the dress pattern to make a dress yet. Either that or he's calling her messy and she's saying, no, it's not messy. So I'm pretty sure he means that, hey, you haven't used it yet. You haven't sewn the pattern yet. Where did you buy it? I don't know the name of the store. On the principal street there? I think it was on the street that Hutchinson's bookstore is on. I'm not positive. What kind of a one was it, please? It was a pink stripe and a white stripe and a blue stripe corded gingham. Your attention has already been called to the circumstance of going to the drugstore on Smith's, on the corner of Columbia and Main Streets, by some officer, has it not, on the day before the tragedy? I don't know whether some officer has asked me. Somebody has spoken of it to me. I don't know who it was. Did that take place? I did not. Do you know where the drugstore is? I don't. Did you go into any drugstore and inquire for prussic acid? I did not. Where were you on Wednesday morning that you remember? At home. All the time? All day until Wednesday night. Nobody there but your parents and yourself and the servant. Why, Mr. Morse came sometime in the afternoon, or at noon time, I suppose. I did not see him. He did not come so to see you? No, sir, I did not see him. He did not come until afternoon anyway, did he? I don't think he did. I am not sure. Did you dine with the family that day? I was downstairs, yes, sir. I did not eat any breakfast with them. Did you go into the drugstore for any purpose whatever? I did not. I think you said yesterday that you did not go into the room where your father lay after he was killed on the sofa, but only looked in at the door. I looked in. I did not go in. You did not step into the room at all? I did not. Did you ever, after your mother was found killed, go into that room? No, sir. Did you afterwards go into the room where your father was killed, any more than to go through it, to go upstairs? When they took me upstairs, they took me through that room. Otherwise than that, did you go into it? No, sir. Let me refresh your memory. You came down in the night to get some water with Miss Russell, along towards night, or in the evening, to get some water with Miss Russell. Thursday night. I don't remember it. Don't you remember coming downstairs sometime to get some toilet water? No, sir, there was no toilet water downstairs. Or to empty the slops. I don't know whether I did Thursday evening or not. I'm not sure. Oh, I am so happy that plumbing has come such a long way. We do not have to get toilet water nor empty slops. Oh, yeah, I'm thankful for my indoor plumbing. You think it may have been some other evening? I don't remember coming down with her to do such a thing. I may have. I can't tell whether it was Thursday evening or any other evening. Other than that, if that did take place, you don't recollect going into that room for any purpose at any time? No, sir. Was the dress that was given to the officers the same dress you wore that morning? Yes, sir. The India silk? No, it was not an India silk. It is silk and linen. Some call it Bengaline silk. Something that dress there. Pongi. No, it was not like that. Did you give to the officer the same shoes and stockings that you wore? I did, sir. Do you remember where you took them off? I wore the shoes ever after that, all around the house Friday, and at all Thursday, and all day Thursday, and all day Friday and Saturday, until I put on my shoes for the street. That is to say, you wore them all that day, Thursday, until you took them off for the night. Yes, sir. Did you tell us yesterday all the errand that you had at the barn? Yes, sir. You have nothing to add to what you said? No, sir. You had no other errand than what you had spoken of? No, sir. Miss Borden, of course you appreciate the anxiety that everybody has to find the author of this tragedy, and the questions that I put to you have been in that direction. Now I ask you, if you can furnish any other fact, or give any other, even suspicion, that will assist the officers in any way in this matter. About 2 weeks ago, was you going to tell the occurrence about the man that called the house? No, sir. It was after my sister went away. I came home from Miss Russell's one night, and as I came up, I always glanced towards the side door as I came along by the carriageway. I saw a shadow in the side steps. I did not stop walking, but I walked slower. Somebody ran down the steps, around the east end of the house. I thought it was a man, because I saw no skirts, and I was frightened, and of course I did not go around to see. I hurried in the front door as fast as I could and locked it. What time of night was that? I think about 9:15. It was not after 9 o'clock anyway. Do you remember what night that was? No, sir, I don't. I saw somebody run around the house once before last winter. One thing at a time. Did you recollect about how long ago that last occurrence was? It was after my sister went away. She has been away 2 weeks today, so it must have been within 2 weeks. 2 weeks today, or 2 weeks at the time of the murder. Is not today Thursday? Yes, but that would be 3 weeks. I thought you said that the day your father was murdered, she had been away just 2 weeks. Yes, she had. Then it would be 3 weeks today your sister went away. A week has elapsed. Yes, it would be 3 weeks. You mean it was some time within the 2 weeks that your sister was away? Yes, I had forgotten that a whole week had passed since the affair. I am not sure whether her referring it to the affair is her evading referring it to a murder, which, if you watch a lot of true crime stuff, there is a whole set of people who believe that if you avoid calling the crime by the name of the crime and you try to lessen the severity of it, like instead of saying that had been a whole week had passed since the murders, you just call it the affair, that you're more likely to be the guilty party because you're trying to lessen the severity of the crime you committed. I would have to see some research on that, whether that's a true thing or not, but it is something that some people believe. I would maybe pay more attention to people who wouldn't refer to it as a murder, but it could be that they just don't want to think about it. I mean, it was somebody that was close to her. It was two people that were close to her. It could also be the fact that we're reading something from the 1890s, and it may have been a cultural taboo for a woman to have referred to it as a murder because, she was all dainty and fair and blah, 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 1890s. Different from that, you cannot say. No, sir, I don't know what the date was. This form, when you first saw it, was on the steps of the back door. Yes, sir. Went down the rear steps. Went down towards the barn. Around the back of the house. Disappeared in the dark. I don't know where they went. Have you ever mentioned that before? Yes, sir. I told Mr. Jennings. To any officer? I don't think I have, unless I told Mr. Hanscom. What was you going to say about last winter? Last winter, when I was coming home from church one Thursday evening, I saw somebody run around the house again. I told my father of that. Did you tell your father of this last one? No, sir. Of course you could not identify who it was either time. No, I could not identify who it was, but it was not a very tall person. Have you sealskin sacks? Yes, sir. Where are they? Hanging in a large white bag in the attic, each one separate. Put away for the summer. Yes, sir. Do you ever use prussic acid on your sacks? Acid? No, sir. I don't use anything on them. Is there anything else that you can suggest that even amounts to anything whatsoever? I know of nothing else except the man who came, and father ordered him out. That is all I know. that you told about the other day? I think I did, yes, sir. You have not been able to find that man? I have not. I don't know whether anybody else has or not. Have you caused search to be made for him? Yes, sir. When was the offer of reward made for the detection of the criminals? I think it was made Friday. Who suggested that? We suggested it ourselves and asked Mr. Buck if he did not think it was a good plan. Whose suggestion was it, yours or Emma's? I don't remember. I think it was mine. All right, guys, we did it. We finished volume 1 of the Inquest. We do have another volume. The first volume was not a true facsimile. If you remember, I made a mistake on that one. The first volume is a copy of a news article. So, like, the reporter went to the inquest and then they took the transcription down. Obviously, we know that they've made some mistakes because they tried to protect Bridget's name by calling her Maggie, only to screw up and out her as Bridget anyway. So, and then they gave her last name too. So that's probably why during the witness statements, Bridget was like, hey, I want out of here. Like, everybody knows people are sending messages to the jail. I'm not in jail. We now understand how that came to be. It was because people probably did like they do now. And they were like, hey, this person was this and now they're this, and let me find out. And they lived here, and I'm going to go harass them, or I'm going to go ask for an interview. So I have some sympathies for Bridget at this point. So volume 2 is the actual facsimile. All right. So I don't know, since I haven't looked ahead. I did promise you guys I was not going to look ahead, which is also the reason why that I go and I'm like, yeah, like, why didn't she do this? And then like 2 sentences later, it's like, oh, yeah, they did that. So don't know how volume 2 is going to differ from volume 1, but it will be interesting to see the difference. There should be no name protection in volume 2 because it is a true court transcript. All right, everyone, that is it for today, and I will see you next time. Until then, happy hunting.